was able to work out their technical difficulties if they had any. Not everybody's been using Zoom, but luckily my daughter's an expert, so she can help us if we, if we have any major issues. So I want to welcome you. I'm just going to start out this meeting. We have a good meeting lined up for you, and thank you for joining us for the 11th meeting of the TxSTIC. At TxDOT, we generally incorporate safety into our events since safety is our mission zero. And since we're not in a location where I need to talk about exits or, ways to deal with emergencies, let me just take this moment to say, I hope everyone is staying safe and doing their best to minimize risk during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Unfortunately, minimizing is really all we can do right now. It cannot be eliminated, and this pandemic has impacted some of us directly, our colleagues and family members, despite our best efforts. Some of us even joining the meeting today have been impacted directly. So I just wanted to take a moment to say that. You may notice a theme today of sharing innovation. The goal of this meeting is to ensure that you leave with an understanding that not only are we here to learn from one another, we are also here to inspire each other by sharing our innovative stories. I hope that you keep that in mind today as we go through the presentation, ways that your member organizations have been able to push through the challenges of this pandemic and to meet other demands through adaptation and creative thinking as we go through this agenda. So also be thinking of which topics and innovations shared today that might help you or your organizations to meet a challenge you might be facing. And so with that, I would like to introduce Darren Anderson. He is the Director of Strategy and Innovation at TxDOT, and most of you are familiar with him. Darren, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited today to go through the topics of the agenda. Yeah, I'm just going to do a little overview of what's been going on in our world in TxDOT that has relationship to our STIC. And I guess first and most important is on the 22nd of October, there was what was called the National STIC Network meeting. And I participated in that, and it was kind of a kickoff and show of these everyday counts, the round of research topics that they have available in this round or in this version. And that was fantastic. I mean, I think what's really, and you'll hear more, so I don't want to talk too much about it, but I think every one of the research projects has pertinence to both TxDOT elements as well as to local and local transportation and metropolitan planning organizations. So I think there's a lot of applicability across the transportation spectrum as well as potentially to other state agencies. So I think that's fantastic. And I think another new wrinkle that they added that we're going to kind of do today as well is they also brought in innovative efforts outside of everyday counts that other state DOTs had been doing, and we're looking to try and really capitalize on that thinking, both at the national and the state level, to make sure that we're not just focused on a specific research project, but if there are other innovations happening out there that would be of use across Texas, that we want to share those as much as possible, and not only from within Texas, but try to bring ones that we see outside of Texas back to you and share those, and then work to get you the opportunity to use or learn more about those. We also had our annual short course within TxDOT. That's kind of the focus of that is on educating our engineering efforts and making sure that they maintain their continuing education requirements. It's expanded somewhat to also address other activities within the department and inform what's happening there. And obviously there's a lot of heavily influenced research component to that, because we bring research projects that the university as well as our people have been working on those and share the results of those and help spread the information. We get NCHRP research releases periodically. I thought I should highlight that yesterday, I believe, or very recently, they published one on pandemic operations, and our research division actually has that if you would be interested to see what it covered. I think it's focused on state DOTs, but it might have some applicability if you're trying to look for a playbook to apply some of the lessons learned that they've gathered. Of course, our research program itself is doing its annual problem statement development. We're getting pretty far along in the process. It won't be long before we release those out to all of our state research universities and ask for their proposals to those problem statements. And those will be for beginning of fiscal year 21 is when those actually would kick off. So we'll be selecting the proposals over the spring and awarding those, and then plan to initiate those at the beginning of fiscal year 21. Just to wrap it up, then a couple other big activities are the Association of State Highway Transportation Organizations, ASTO, met, I think it was either last week or the week before, everything blurs together, but a number of significant activities at the national level that they were sharing, and discussions about what the future looks like related to transportation, and we're working to consume all that and share that out as best as we were able to grab that point in time. Of course, things change over time, and certainly our Federal Highways Texas partners know quite a bit about what's going on. We also held the Texas Mobility Summit from our Innovation Alliance in the last couple of months, and that was a very well-attended event, and had a number of our state and local leaders talk about their particular concerns in transportation. So it was everything from rural to environmental to what's going to happen in the next legislative session, and a number of topics, transit, and how can we move forward on those issues. And I think that effort continues to grow just like this STIC does. And then finally, the last thing is, we continue to work on the statewide Connected and Autonomous Vehicles Task Force. We've held a number of subcommittee meetings. We are drafting white papers. We're trying to get those ready for a December 3rd full meeting of the task force, and then subsequently to release those to the governor's office and to others as directed. So aggressively working through Thanksgiving and into the beginning of December. But this is what it's all about. It's great that we're getting things moving, and we're able to share what we're going to cover today. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you for that update. That was pretty thorough. I wanted to also welcome Al Alonzi. He's the FHWA Texas Division, Administrator. He's the Texas STIC co-chair along with Darren Anderson. And I'd like to introduce him so we can hear what they've been doing on their end.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. Great job, Darren. I thought I would, talk very briefly, just within the context of, Aaron introduced the concept of, we're in this pandemic, and it just struck me that, in the middle of March, FHWA was able to essentially have everyone work 100% remotely from home. And here we are, and we're still doing that to a large extent. And it happened transparently. We had been practicing, what might happen if for a number of years. And, in this case, because we had thought strategically, the technology was available for us to continue to operate. And interestingly, when I think when this pandemic is over, as we're in this, real world, real time experiment, things are likely going to change. I don't think that we're going to be 100% back to the way we were pre-pandemic. And there's been a lot of innovation even going on right now in terms of new ways that we are working. And it sort of reminds me of what the STIC is all about, right? So when the Everyday Counts initiative from Federal Highways was initiated 6, 7, 8 years ago now, it was really about fostering a collaborative culture of innovation throughout the multitude of agencies that are responsible for transportation, not just highways, but across all modes. And so a STIC was set up in all the states, including here in Texas, to do just that, to facilitate rapid implementation of innovative technology. And innovations are more than just the Everyday Counts initiatives that you'll hear a little bit more about from Kirk Falver, from my team here shortly. But innovation means different things to everyone. It could be very, the autonomous vehicle levels, or something very simple as well. If it's new to you, new to an agency, well, that by definition is innovation, right? And so we come together to talk about the kinds of innovation that are important and fill a need for us here in Texas. And we've made a lot of progress and done a lot of really positive things. And it's thanks to you, because it really requires your engagement. And that's really our responsibility. And the success of today will really involve your engagement and require that engagement, even though we're doing it a little bit differently than perhaps we've done it before. And so, I look forward to hearing an update from what's been happening recently, but more importantly, the discussion that takes place throughout the morning is what I'm really looking forward to. And I just want to say thank you and turn it back over.
Thank you. We appreciate those comments. And you mentioned that Kirk will be talking to us. Kirk's going to be talking to us about the EDC6 innovations. These are the new innovations that have come out this year. And I think you'll find some of them interesting and some of them will look familiar. And with that, Kirk, if you're ready, you may go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Shelley. Today, the path forward will be filled with new innovations that are going to be talked about as part of Everyday Counts Round 6, which is going to cover FY 21 to 22. And these new technologies and advancements are going to be shared with you. And as well, there's going to be a EDC Virtual Summit next month on December 8th, 9th, and 10th. And I think Shelley's going to tell you a little bit more about it. If you haven't registered for that, please do so in the near future, because we have over 100 participants from the state of Texas alone. I think over 1,200 participants nationwide. So that'd be a really good opportunity to learn more about these innovations that we're going to be talking about with the subject matter experts from around the country. But first of all, I'd like to show you a short 5-minute video on these innovations that are being pursued as part of Everyday Counts Round 6. It's called Innovation for a Nation on the Move. And Aaron, if you could cue up that video, I'd appreciate it. You might want to unmute, Aaron.
We're working on getting the audio up for you. If you'll just be patient with us, sorry about that.
Kirk, are you hearing that audio?
No, not at all.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Give me just a second.
That's okay. I think the PowerPoint presentation is going to go over some of the same information. So if you wanted to move ahead.
Okay. And I can provide the link in the chat for everyone.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead and do that. Thank you.
Okay, I guess we're starting the EDC6 PowerPoint now, and there's 7 new innovations that we're talking about. Some of them have been around for a while, so I can't call them new, but there's ones like virtual public involvement, like we're doing today, crowdsourcing for operations. And crowdsourced data can be obtained whenever and wherever people travel, allowing agencies to capture in real time what happens between sensors. We use that as part of Waze and other types of technologies that are crowdsourced to improve traffic incident management and operations. E-ticketing. I think we're going backwards now. We talked a little bit about crowdsourcing, cost savings, and what we can use it for purposes of operations and real-time driver information. E-ticketing is the second innovation, and digital as-built. Next slide. And in e-ticketing, we're converting paper-based materials like ticketing systems and as-built plans into electronic workflows and digital as-built, enhancing the accessibility of highway project data. That includes 3D design models and other metadata, enhancing the full usability of as-built plans for operations, maintenance, and asset management. Next slide. We're talking about the third one, next generation traffic incident management programs aimed to shorten the duration and impact of roadway incidents and improve the safety of motorists, crash victims, and responders. New tools, data, and training mechanisms are available that can benefit both new and existing TIM programs, including local agency and off-interstate applications. Next slide. strategic workforce development. The demand for highway construction, maintenance, and operations is growing. The workers are at the same time faced with emerging technologies that require them to have new skills. The Highway Construction Workforce Partnership has developed new resources and innovative strategies for identifying, training, and placing the workforce needed to fill the gaps that are needed to support the nation's highway system. Next slide. Our next innovation is targeted pavement overlay solutions. The pavement overlays represent a significant portion of highway infrastructure dollars. State and local agencies can maximize this investment and help ensure safer, longer roadways by employing innovative overlay procedures that will improve pavement performance, reduce traffic impacts, and reduce the cost of pavement ownership. Next slide. Our next innovation is ultra-high performance concrete for bridge preservation and repair. It's a new material for bridge construction that has been popular for field cast connections between prefabricated bridge elements. Bridge preservation and repair is an emergency, is an emerging and promising application for UHPC. And this UHPC-based repair solutions are robust, offer superior strength, durability, and improved life cycle cost over traditional methods. State and local agencies can employ UHPC for bridge preservation and repair to maintain or improve bridge conditions. And our final innovation, our number 7 innovation is, next slide, virtual public involvement like we're doing today. Public engagement during transportation project planning and development helps agencies identify issues and concerns early in the process, which ultimately can accelerate project delivery. Virtual public involvement strategies supplement traditional face-to-face information sharing with technology platforms that increase the number and variety of methods agencies can use to inform the public, receive feedback, and collect and consider comments. So those are the 7 new innovations for FY21 to 22. They're based on people, products, and process. That's the theme for this year's round. Every 2 years, we'll have a new round of innovations. And we've gone back to 2010 and now we have over 50 innovations, I think, with EDC6 round 6. And I'm here to take any questions that you would have. What we're planning to do is do a state caucus perhaps next month around the 3rd week of January, and to gain further insight on which innovations you guys choose to move ahead with for FY21 and 22. This is kind of like a menu of options. We can select several of these from the menu or just a few, depending on the interest by the STIC members and TxSTIC and the other stakeholders as part of the STIC process. We're probably going to do a survey out to the STIC membership. The survey is going to ask you to rank, maybe prioritize which ones you think are relevant for the state of Texas, and we can move forward with a list from the state caucus, from the survey that we do into the state caucus that we'll look at maybe towards the end of January. So for additional information, you can sign up for EDC News and the Innovator newsletter. You can get it on your mobile device. And with that, there's a website for innovation. And I believe the video that you saw is on that website with audio, hopefully. And that's all I had today. And if you have any questions, I'll field any questions that you would have. Thank you for this opportunity to present before the STIC.
Kirk, I have a question.
Okay, thanks.
Shelley. So I was just wondering, is there a difference between some of those EDCs that we've seen before and notice how we've seen crowdsourcing before? Can you explain for everyone just the difference between EDC5 and EDC6 crowdsourcing?
Well, some of these innovations have been carried forward from the previous EDC5, like virtual public involvement, as you mentioned, Shelley, and crowdsourcing for advancing operations. And what we're trying to do is bring it into metropolitan planning organizations, as part of their transportation planning process, and integrate that more into the statewide and metropolitan planning process more often than not, and try to do it at the statewide level as well as part of the statewide planning process, to look at ways that we can integrate our planning and operations in a more seamless fashion. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to pursue these again in this EDC6 round, to look at statewide applications and not just at the local levels.
Okay, that helps. And then I had one more question about, so if somebody in the STIC is interested, or somebody who's just participating today, they're interested in finding out more about what the EDC, what will this do for them, since they're locals or they might be outside of the DOT. If we could just maybe explain how they can get, or what they would get out of it, how it helps and benefits them.
Well, I think, Shelley, to answer your question, there's going to be an EDC Virtual Summit next month, and I would suggest that the local public agencies, the MPOs, sign up and register for that, because the subject matter experts will be able to get in more detail on each of one of these innovations. We just approached it at a high level today, just to offer a introduction to the innovations that we're pursuing as part of EDC6. But if you want more details, there's going to be like breakout sessions. There's going to be 30-minute one-on-ones, with the subject matter experts, including elevator conversations and so forth. And you can actually interact with the subject matter experts as part of the breakouts. And I would suggest that the LPAs or the local public agencies and MPOs, if they want to find out how this benefits them, to speak to them and to interact with them on the virtual platform that we're going to have December 8th through the 10th.
Great, thank you for that. And what's funny is there was a question from Darren about what I just asked about. I did not see the question at the time. It was, what happens when you say you're interested in a project? What is provided? And I think you answered that. The other question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
One thing that we forgot to mention, that there are STIC incentive funds at $100,000 a pop for each one of these innovations that are being pursued. We can apply for those through the state DOT, through TxSTIC, through RTI, for areas that want to implement it at the local level and perhaps deploy it in their region. So there's STIC incentive funds, and there's also aid funds, accelerating innovation deployment funds, that are at $1 million a pop. So if you have an idea of, if you have any suggestions on what we should use these funds for EDC6 in particular, then we should coordinate with Shelley and Kevin Pete over at RTI and try to get a proposal put together to get the funding implemented, authorized. Okay.
It's great information. And then one more question. So basically, if a local entity wants to get information on a particular project, can they just do that and then not worry about state ranking of projects? This was a question from Darren.
Well, if a local area wants to pursue one of these innovations, I would suggest working with RTI and our division office to kind of help develop maybe a peer exchange or a one-on-one with our headquarters or a resource center, and try to get things launched in a coordinated fashion. And in that way, we can kind of do maybe a workshop or a peer exchange and try to get things started in that way. Like we did for crowdsourcing, we did a peer exchange not too long ago, maybe a year ago. And that was very successful. We've had a lot of good feedback from that type of workshop. So there's workshops and training available for those that want to kind of coordinate their efforts a little bit better with the federal and state agencies.
Great.
Kirk, I'd also add that if anyone wants specific information on any of the EDC projects, they can certainly go to the website and click on links for any of those. And if they want more information, like Kirk was talking about, then certainly I would go to Kirk, and he can point you in the right direction and do those next level items that he was talking about in terms of peer exchanges and that kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you, Al. One of the things that is interesting on the website, there are going to be fact sheets for each one of these innovations. And on those fact sheets are at least 2 resource subject matter experts that we can call upon to bring training or to ask questions. They're like the subject matter experts for that innovation. So we have 14 out of the 7 innovations, we have 14 subject matter experts that are available on call, what have you, to answer your questions, to kind of facilitate the information exchange that are necessary to implement some of these new innovations within the state of Texas.
Great information. Thank you for sharing that, Al and Kirk. And if there are no more questions, we'll move on to the next presentation on the agenda. Were there any hands raised? Does anybody see? Okay, I don't see anything. But yeah, throughout the meeting today, if you have questions, we'll revisit these opportunities. And at the very end, TxSTIC members will have an opportunity to mention what they're doing at their agency, and then also ask questions or let us know if you're interested in a project. With that being said, thanks again, Kirk. Appreciate your overview of those great projects. And the next up, we have Kenneth Perine with UT Austin Center for Transportation Research. He's going to be giving us an update on an EDC5 innovation for weather responsive management strategies. And Ken, if you're ready, feel free to get started.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Thanks, Shelley. Yes, I'm Ken Perine from Center for Transportation Research at UT Austin. And I just wanted to give you a really quick update on what we've been working on with our EDC5 project. Many of you attending have heard a lot about what we've been doing with weather responsive management strategies. And there's been a couple interesting developments in the last couple months that I think are really worth highlighting right now, because we're starting to see really the fruition of what the EDC program is all about. And we're seeing the potential of what can happen in the future. If you can go to the next slide. The most exciting development that we've had is that we now have sensor kits that we're going to be using to equip 4 vehicles in the Abilene district for winter weather treatment. And what these do is they basically detect when there is treatment activity on the roadway. So 2 of the kits detect whether or not the plow is lowered or raised, and other kits detect whether the sprayer is on or the spreader is on. And what this does is it non-invasively taps into the existing fleet vehicle management system that TxSTIC is already using, the same data stream, and allows indications of the treatment activity to appear in the same reports that already exist within the system. This can supersede the paper records that have to be currently kept with items that are geolocated, they're time-stamped, and can be precisely located on maps as far as where treatment activity takes place. Furthermore, we've been in contact with Devin Humphreys to try to integrate these indications onto the live vehicle tracking update systems that are being developed in the ArcGIS enterprise system that TxDOT is currently evaluating and adopting. So we're very excited about the potential that this will bring. With these 4 vehicles, we can demonstrate our concepts and then be able to scale up from there. Can you go to the next slide? The other development that our researchers have been working on is trying to integrate multiple data sources into common visualizations so that traffic operations personnel can be able to view very quickly what is happening in their district. Not only the weather, the temperatures, but also being able to see interpolations of the temperatures in between the weather stations to get an idea of what remote areas of roadway might look like, and also be able to add on the INRIX speed data that already appears within the center-to-center interface for Lone Star onto the same map. In addition, we want to be able to use other types of sensors, including an experimental infrared array that you can see highlighted on the center of this slide, and to eventually be able to overlay on top of that tracks of where treatment activity has occurred, both historically and current. With that, and the things that we learned from the operations personnel through this winter season, we want to compile together all of our findings and present everything in a workshop webinar that we're looking to offer in next year. Next slide, please. So that's all for my quick update, and I invite any questions you have. I was not too sure if the questions will be happening at the end of the session or if they can be given right now.
We have time to do them now if anyone would like to ask questions now, but sometimes people need to think about it. Looks like Kirk has something.
I just unmuted, and I was going to ask Ken a question.
Yes.
This sensory equipment that you have, how do you think it's going to help TxSTIC in terms of weather, extreme weather events and maintenance activities going on up in the North Panhandle area, for example?
Yes, and that's exactly why our experiment area is Abilene, because they do experience multiple winter weather storms each year. And the most exciting part is those sensors that would be equipped non-invasively onto winter weather operations vehicles, mainly so that operations personnel can know exactly where those vehicles are actually treating roadways and be able to see historic records that have automatically been collected, which can really improve the accuracy and also allow for better learning of how to more efficiently perform winter weather operations in the future. I also like the idea of more sensors. I think this can benefit many areas of Texas, where if there's more sensors and more ability for effective visualizations to appear within operation centers, then decision makers can really have a lot better data to make decisions on. I think that can provide a lot of benefit in terms of responsiveness, but also cost savings.
Great question, Kirk. So Ken, I'm also wondering, so what are your plans in the near future for this this project? What are we going to do over the winter and early spring? Do you have any plans?
We are going to have our sensors operational. We're actually working with Verizon now on making those final connections into their telemetry system for the fleet vehicle management. And with that, we are also working with our researchers to come up with a game plan for trying to analyze data after times we experience winter weather. So with that, we want to be able to gain insights on what can we learn from these sensors that we have deployed, not only the winter weather maintenance vehicle data, but also the weather stations that we have. And with that, be able to highlight and document the plans that can be used for future years, especially for TxSTIC, if they are to increase the number of sensors on roadways. We also want to have a game plan for being able to deploy additional winter weather operations vehicle sensors. And with that, I think there'll be a lot of opportunities for either IACs or aid funding.
That's really exciting. So I'm glad that you'll have something you can actually look at in real time over this season. So it's going to be fun to see what you find out. I appreciate you coming and giving an update on this.
Yes.
We didn't expect it, so it's great that you're so forthcoming and able to help us learn more about what you're doing. And with that being said, thanks again, Ken. We have more time for questions, and now we're doing a question answer session for anything we've talked about thus far. We still have more to talk about after a brief break, but I just want to let you know that now is a great opportunity to have a little discussion. If there's something in particular that you've been thinking about asking, just feel free to do that right now. If you prefer the chat, you can type it up in chat. But basically what we're looking for is, is there anything you're curious about so far that just stands out to you that's, ringing over in your head and you're thinking, I'm wondering about that project and if we can use that. Just let us know. We really want to hear that engagement right now. And I'll allow a few minutes. We'll wait for people to type up or speak up.
Shelley, there's a question for Ken in chat.
I'm not sure if I can see it. The last one I see is if other districts or cities, counties are interested in what is happening in this project, I guess that's for Ken. How do they get engaged or follow you, Ken?
One of the big things that we are going to be looking toward when we give our workshop in the spring is to be able to document and present our findings in a way that they can be reproduced in any other district in TxSTIC. We especially we're working with the engineering firm in Abilene to design the sensor kits in ways that use off-the-shelf parts in very cost-effective ways, and to be able to design sensor kits in a way that they can be installed and removed from vehicles without impacting their operations. And these are things that we really want to pass on, because I think this will be very relevant for other districts, especially those that have vehicles that are multi-purpose, vehicles that are used for winter purposes during the winter, but other types of vegetation management, for example, during the spring. And I think there'll be a lot to share in that way. And these are also materials that will be archived along with the data research or the CTR research library, and also redistributable among TxDOT and other districts that are outside of Texas.
Thank you. That's great information as well. We have a couple of other good questions. Natalie, I hate to do this to you, but I might need you to elaborate. Are there any road condition sensor on vehicles that is to report this information back to the TMC? Natalie, do you want to speak to this question at all?
Sure. So yeah, I was just asking, is there any sensors that are being placed on the vehicles that look at road conditions? So as they drive over the pavement, do you have that as part of the project? And then I do have one more question that I'll just go ahead and ask. I was going to put it in the chat. Is there a map that shows roadways that were treated that's available to the public? Because, for example, years ago when we had the cobblestone ice within our region, it would have been nice to know what roadways were clear, meaning, you know, maybe okay to drive on, and which ones were just not in good condition at all, that could have been shared with the public, so that if they had to go somewhere, they would know what route maybe to take to provide that traveler information to them. So those are the two questions I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. Yeah, those are excellent questions. So with the current project, we have deployed 2 mobile eyesight sensors, and these sensors are specifically designed to look at pavement temperature, but also they characterize the ice conditions on the pavement. We have one installed up in Abilene, and we also have one on a Hero vehicle, or we're planning to have it on a Hero vehicle in the Austin district. That's an incident response vehicle. And we're excited to be able to look at that data when it's available, because they will basically sample all over the district, wherever the treatment or incident response activities are happening. And these are things that we can gain experiences on and be able to learn from. Right now, the data from those sensors goes into a proprietary web app, but that can also be viewed within a traffic operations center. In the future, it's possible to integrate that data into the existing IT infrastructure that TxDOT has. The other question about making treatment activity available to the public, I think fits very nicely into the overall goals that Devin Humphreys is working on with the ArcGIS enterprise system that TxDOT is evaluating and currently in the process of deploying. And with that, right now we're looking at just getting the data into the system, and they've already been able to visualize where fleet vehicles are within maps. The idea is to augment that with breadcrumbs or other historic information about where treatment activity has happened. And the overall plan for the enterprise system is to have public portals, various variations of the applications that are on that portal or that enterprise system that are available to the public. How that integrates into Drive Texas or into new systems has yet to be seen, but I think there's going to be a lot of potential using tools that have already been developed, things that can be generated very quickly, new types of applications that can be made available to the public.
That's great. That sounds like a very thorough answer. We have one more question for you. So Brian had a question. I think this is a little more general, so it might not be for you. This is FHWA or TxDOT. So the funding that was mentioned earlier, should a local agency work through TxDOT or FHWA to see if we have something that might be applicable? And then the other question is about, will the weather system data then be used to see if treatment policies should change or measure how effective they are if they are correlated to safety data? So that's a big one. You're welcome to take a stab if you want.
Yes, I will leave the answer to the funding to Kirk or others. From what I understand is that RTI is a great resource, and I hope that they'll be able to speak more to that. But I would like to answer the question about the use of the weather data and correlating it with safety, because one of the activities that we're going to be working on with this project too is to give questionnaires to operations personnel after the winter season, with some questions that really do have to do with whether the availability of data, the visualizations did help them better understand how to properly respond to safety incidents on the roadway, or if they're able to use some of the data sources to have a better idea of safety incidents, such as the speed data. And that's information that we will definitely be compiling into our workshop and final report materials.
Great, thank you. Kirk, did you have anything to add on the funding question?
Yeah, speaking to the funding question that Brian had, yes, to work through TxDOT, RTI, if you have a funding need that you want to see funded through STIC incentive funds for the 100K, or through the AID $1 million grant program through Federal Highway Administration, because TxDOT is generally our pass-through state agency that we pass the money through, and we authorize our funds through our FEMAS, our Fiscal Management Information System, and that in that way just coordinate with TxDOT, RTI, and we can get it figured out.
Thank you. I appreciate you speaking to that, Kirk. And if there are any other questions, we have an opportunity now. I'm thinking, so we're at 9:57. We're a little bit ahead. We've already had our questions for the moment. So what we're thinking is trying to play the video again, just to see if we can get it to work, and y'all can take your break now, and we'll reconvene at 10:20. Well, we can move it up to 10:15. Let's see, so that gives everybody, yeah, let's go ahead and do 10:15, plan to come back. And I'll start my presentation when we get everyone back.
Reliable modern infrastructure provides good quality of life for Americans and supports economic growth.
The Federal Highway Administration's Everyday Counts program, known as EDC, is a state-based program to rapidly deploy proven technologies and processes that boost safety and efficiency. EDC Round 6 highlights the power of people in transportation, new applications of products to save money, and new processes to save time.
Agencies can collect real-time crowdsourced data wherever people travel, between sensors, in rural regions, along arterials, and beyond jurisdictional boundaries. Crowdsourced data can be used to optimize roadway use by reducing congestion and increasing safety and reliability.
Public involvement is critical in the transportation decision-making process because it creates meaningful communication with the public. Virtual public involvement tools like project visualizations, mobile applications, and all-in-one tools help agencies gather valuable feedback to improve transportation.
The demand for highway construction workers is growing, and emerging technologies in the transportation industry require new skills. The Strategic Workforce Development Initiative includes strategies and resources to promote jobs in transportation and provide career preparation to a new audience.
Next generation traffic incident management programs help shorten the impact of roadway incidents and improve the safety of motorists, crash victims, and responders. New tools such as unmanned aircraft systems, data analytics, and computer-aided dispatch systems help agencies better detect and manage traffic incidents.
Highway construction projects generate massive amounts of valuable data that historically were communicated via paper. Transportation agencies can save time and improve safety by using e-ticketing and digital as-bills. Electronic ticketing improves the tracking, exchange, and archiving of materials tickets. Digital as-bills include utilities and other subsurface information to support future operations, maintenance, and asset management.
New applications for proven products can help agencies maintain roadways with limited funding. One is ultra-high performance concrete, commonly used for prefabricated bridge elements. Bridge preservation and repair is a new application for UHPC. It offers superior strength, enhanced performance, and improved lifecycle cost over traditional methods.
Pavement overlays represent a significant portion of highway infrastructure dollars. Targeted overlay pavement solutions allow highway agencies to retain the value of existing pavements in need of treatment. Cost-effective asphalt and concrete overlay applications improve safety and performance. They also shorten construction time, extend service life, and enhance user satisfaction.
The power of people, new applications of products, and new processes can save your agency time, money, and lives. Learn more about EDC6 on the FHWA website.
Everyone will start back at 10:25. I know I said a little earlier, but I think with the time we have, I think we'll be okay. I probably do not need my full time allotment other than to discuss questions. So feel free to take your 5 more minutes to grab your last cup of coffee and come on back. Okay, it's 10:25 and we're ready to get started again if everyone is back. We did have a question that occurred at the end of the last session prior to the break, and I was not able to address that yet. So I wanted to bring it up now. After Brian's comment from City of Frisco, we had Ugana made a comment. He said, CV technology, are DSRC still an available communication to use by public agencies for SPAT, which is signal phasing and timing? Or should other means of communication like modems or fiber be what is available? This is a pretty technical question, but if someone in the group would like to speak to that, feel free to unmute yourself.
Hey, go ahead.
Oh, hi, Darren, just go ahead. You do it. I'll support you.
May will have the much more technical answer. I will say that Federal Communications Commission is looking at the 5.9 gigahertz issue and ruling well, I believe it's this week. And it's still up in the air. I mean, they're leaning heavily toward opening up the bottom 45 megahertz of that spectrum, and not only doing that, opening that to unlicensed Wi-Fi, but also keeping the 30 megahertz for safety applications for transportation, but opening that up also to 5G cellular, not just DSRC, with a potential intent to shift all of that to 5G cellular in the next couple of years. And there's a lot of discussion about, regardless of that, regardless of what the solution set is for the type of waveform, that you still have a lot of concern over interference from the lower 45 megahertz. We don't know what the ruling ultimately will be. We're waiting to see. There's also a lot of pushback from certain congressional representatives. And so a lot of it's a waiting game, but someone says voted 5-0 this morning. So we may have already got our answer. That being said, if that's the case, and if that holds, then, the writing's on the wall. You'll need to look at 5G solutions or shifting to those over time. And frankly, they're probably, if you're not procuring items right now, they've been holding on allowing any new licenses for DSRC. And I'll stop with that and see if John Ming has any more relevant information.
No, Darren, you covered it very well. I think Chad just mentioned FCC just voted unanimously 5-0 to adopt the proposed change. Yeah. So, I just want to mention, communications is very critical, but also the applications use cases, we can prepare ourselves, so giving you the communications, how would you use in that communications, to implement some of the applications to address our issues or challenges. So I think that's something that we still can do while waiting for this communications issue being settled down. Just want to add. Thank you.
Ugana, did that answer and speak to your question?
Yes, to an extent. I'm just worried that we'll probably be, if we're going 5G, we will have to be paying the private industry to every month for communication, but that's okay. Whichever way, all I want to know is what direction we're headed and how we can, stretch our dollars as much as we can. So that's all I needed to know. So whichever way is still okay, but I need to just know what direction we're headed. That's all. Thank you very much.
And just not to take away from the presenters, but we are working on that issue too. We're very well aware of the potential for what it means as the digital highway infrastructure gets built. I'm not talking about our highway. I'm talking about the digital communications infrastructure, and it's not just a transportation issue. It's all public type of agencies issue of what would be their access to that system, and if we're going to allow it to be a part of public right of way, be that state or federal lands, there needs to be serious discussions about in-kind use without, significant fees over time being charged. But we're working on that. That's a very hot issue right now, and I appreciate you emphasizing that.
Yes, and you have plenty of time to address that. Thank you, Darren. So with that being said, let me just ensure there's no more questions. It looks like Tom went ahead, Thomas Bamonte, who moderated our last meeting, gave us a nice link to go through if you are interested in learning more about that. So I think that was a very good topic and very up to date. And so now I just want to shift a little bit. We're going to go back to what was mentioned. A couple of people have mentioned it. I think Darren, maybe Kirk. And we had a request that came out from the innovative team at FHWA and regarding this upcoming EDC Virtual Summit that'll happen on December 8th through 10th. We still want you to register if you'd like to participate. That request was basically just to see if every state could provide up to 10 homegrown innovations. They were to originate outside of EDC and basically be something that is innovative to your agency, something that you came up with on your own. And obviously it can be DOTs, just something that was in-house, so to speak. And, there's also a situation you might be coordinating or partnering with other entities or even consultants. So we found a few with the help of a few STIC members and a lot of great minds. We were able to come up with a list of 9 homegrown innovations. And I'm just going to quickly cover those. We have some of the experts themselves talking about their innovations. We have Natalie from NCT Cog that'll talk after me. And then also City of Frisco has a team of people that will be helping to address theirs. And I'll just mention it briefly for theirs so you know what to expect. But for the most part, I'm just going to go through each one. And if any of these innovations seem interesting to you, we can definitely get you in touch with that person. You can use that contact link if you want, or just contact me and then I can get you in touch with them, however that works best for you. In some cases, it's TxSTIC research project. So I'll go ahead and get started. The first one, oh yeah, and also let me say that if you're here and this is your project and you just want to chime in about something right now, that's fine. That being said, Go Karma will be addressed in the presentation by Natalie after my presentation. And that is a really good one to look into. And I was excited about it, but sadly, I no longer live in Dallas. I live in Austin now, so it's not as helpful to me, but I did share it with my friends and family, and you might find it interesting as well. So with that, you can skip on to the next slide. Okay, the Wrong Way Driver Pilot Project from CTRMA. They actually told us about this at the December 2019 meeting. This was a big push last year, and they were kind enough to let us use this project for one of the Texas homegrown innovations. And by investing in these technologies, the Mobility Authority is basically setting the example of how technological innovations solve real world problems by helping to mitigate accidents and ultimately save lives. I've heard some questions about that project regarding, isn't this a lower statistic? But I think, wrong way driving is a pretty big one just because of the severity of the crashes. And, when I was the hazmat coordinator in the Dallas district, it was one of the, sad things that would happen. And we had a few of them while I was there. And when I was woken up in the middle of the night and there was a hazmat incident, a lot of times there was a wrong way driver involved. So I think that's an important topic, and I'm glad they were able to let us use that. And you can go ahead and skip to the next one. Okay, so this one's interesting. It came from the Houston district through some facilitation with our very own Wade Odell, who's also on this call. It's called SWIFT, and basically it's a planning tool, and the acronym stands for Sustainable Ways to Integrate Future Transportation. And the TxSTIC Houston district partnered with AECOM, and they were able to come up with this tool that it basically helps in their planning efforts so that they can consider land use before the design phase of roadway corridor projects, which is a big issue. A lot of times land use doesn't get considered, and you'll find developers come in well before the road is anywhere near built, and we have a lot of issues with timing of those things. and having the appropriate project to meet the needs of that area. So that's going to help the Houston district deliver the right projects to meet the needs of the Metroplex and the communities within. So that's a pretty good one, I think, and I was happy they were able to contribute that one. We'll probably hear more about that one maybe in the next meeting, so y'all can learn more about it. And they have another tool that we'll talk about here in a minute. It's probably the 5th or 6th project, but you can go ahead and skip to the next slide. Okay, this one, I don't need to say much about it. We have the City of Frisco team here to discuss it after Natalie. And so that's going to be a fun one to talk about and very on topic and relevant today. So you can go ahead and skip on to the next one, Erin. Thank you. All right, this is the other one I was telling you about, also with involvement from the Houston District of TxSTIC. And this is another performance-based planning. It's a type tool, a corridor planning or prioritization tool. And so it helps them. They have 2 of them, the prioritization tool, which is the CPT, and then the corridor evaluation tool, which is the CET. It's a mechanism that helps them rank corridors by need, and it includes all of the TxDOT on-system roadways within the Houston district. And it basically can help, it automates part of the workflow with support of an innovative data pond. And basically it's a pilot for the transportation planning and programming division of TxDOT's tools that they prepared for the districts to use. So Houston is doing that pilot. So it's interesting to see how that will work, because it does take into account a lot of factors that are important in the planning process. And the main difference between this one is that it does take in all those performance-based factors, and it looks at a variety of different issues surrounding that. And it helps in feasibility study, planning, and a lot of the feasibility studies have become very important in recent years, because people are more interested now to see and know what's coming to their area. So that's another good tool. You can go ahead and skip to the next. And now we're talking more about TxDOT research. You may have heard of some of these projects before, this one particularly. Concrete median barrier for flood-prone areas. We heard about this at the last STIC meeting as well. So it was another really good one to choose. So basically, after roadway flooding events that occurred during Hurricane Harvey, it was determined that there was a need, or at least overwhelmingly clear, that there was a need for crash-worthy median barrier that is designed to accommodate the flow of the floodwater during the severe weather events. So Chiara Dobrovoni and Blair Johnson discussed it with us last time, and I really appreciated their insight on that. And if you have more questions about that, we can always get in touch with them. And I'm sure they'd be happy to talk about it again to see where things are with implementation and whatnot at the next STIC meeting, if you'd like to hear about it. You can go ahead and go to the next one. Okay, this one also from Chiara. She is the lead researcher on this at TTI. This is similar, but the importance of this one, so this is about finding ways to better communicate with the driver and driver interactions. And while it may be impractical to raise or remove all low water crossings across the state, there are low cost measures to better alert driving public to risks of low water crossings. And I know we have expertise at RTI that can help address any questions you might have about this as well. And also we get directly in contact with Chiara if needed. This is another interesting one, and there are a lot of innovative potential tools that might come out of this. So that's one we'll probably be hearing more about in the future as well. And you can go on to the next one. Okay, so this one is actually near and dear to my heart. I've gotten to know it pretty well over the last year or so. So we've heard from Mohsen a few times at previous meetings as well. And I believe in August, we actually talked about this project some. So this is an AASHTO Sweet 16 winner for high value research. And right now we're at a point where the project is over and we're just looking at ways to implement and bring that home and across the state of Texas. So that's what we're looking at right now with this one. This is a very interesting project just because it gives a lot of tools back to the district and the maintenance sections. They can look and see, you know, do we need to focus on this area? Because embankment failure is a big issue, especially in the North Central Texas area. I know that Paris District, Dallas District, and there's others, because it's not just about soils, it's about how the road was built. And there may be, you know, sloughing of the walls adjacent to highways and whatnot, and they need to repair it to, you know, ensure the stability of the roadway. So that's a really good one. And there's a potential for a lot of cost savings there that you can scroll back through these slides later and look at these details if you're interested. So you can go on to the next one. So this is our 9th innovative project for homegrown innovations. And this one is interesting because of the topic. So we're looking at an implementation project for pavement rehabilitation and design strategy for heavy loads in energy development areas. So the basis of this one is to help provide the right solutions at the right time for TxSTIC districts severely impacted by this activity. As you know, big heavy loads can do a number on a roadway, and if they're trying to repair it, you can have issues with timing. And when you read this about this one, you can learn a little bit about it. There's links, and also I think Ken mentioned the CTR research library. It's also our TxSTIC research library. So you can go to that link and find out about a lot of TxSTIC projects. You can use the basic keyword search, or if you have the number like provided on these slides, you can use that as well to find out more about it. And then also there might be additional links you can look at there. So if any of these innovations sound interesting to you, we could definitely get you in touch with the right people to learn more about it, to see if it's something you can use back in your neck of the woods. And with that, I will go ahead and let Natalie discuss Go Karma in depth. I know y'all are going to be interested to hear about this one. Thank you, Natalie.
Hello, thanks, Shelley. So yeah, I'm just going to talk about our, discuss our auto occupancy detection technology project. And this project automatically detects the number of people in a vehicle. So the main goal of the program was to solve a problem related to applying the correct toll based on the number of people in a vehicle, as well as decreasing the violations of folks that were taking advantage of the discount that were not HOV users. And so there's really two things we were trying to solve with this, and we're trying to use technology to help us do that. On the next slide, I want to touch on, how did this come about? What's the interest of COG, and kind of what are the phases of this particular program? So our Regional Transportation Council, which is the COG policy board, they instructed staff to look at a way to replace this manual enforcement. That was what was out there before we went to this automatic verification and applying the right toll. So they've pushed us to try to come forward with some automated process so that we could better utilize the systems that are out there and make sure that the people that are getting the discounted toll rate are actually HOV users on our system. So the phases of the project, the first phase has focused on our managed lane corridors. And this is again to provide an HOV discount during the peak periods. The managed lane corridors are listed here. I'll also show you a map of where those are located in the Dallas-Fort Worth region. And then future phases is looking at how do we implement something similar to reduce demand on our system on other corridors, other modes, and possibly during special events within our region to give people an incentive to carpool rather than driving by themselves on our facilities. Our particular effort went live in January, right before all this COVID started. And I will, we have had some of our information or some of our trends go down, but they are on the way back up. We're about up to 50% of where we were in the February timeframe for the folks that actually are carpooling and utilizing this technology. On the next slide, it shows our managed lane system. So the corridors highlighted in orange are existing managed lanes that exist within the region. The red corridors are ones that are under construction, and then the blue corridor is more of your traditional HOV lane This technology does not solve for traditional HOV lanes because, again, we're looking at number of occupants and we're applying the right toll. Traditional HOV lanes don't have a toll associated with them, so we're unable to utilize this technology to actually enforce those lanes. I mean, we could see how many people are in the vehicle, but we have no, I guess, anything we can do to enforce that other than having officers out there in the field to enforce that on the traditional lanes. The next slide, I cover another reason of why we're interested. So the HOV subsidy is actually paid for by two different entities. We partnered with TxSTIC on these lanes. So the corridors that are operated by our private sector partners, LBJ and NTE Express, those HOV subsidies are actually paid for by our Regional Transportation Council. And then the corridors that are operated by TxSTIC just does not collect that additional toll. So it is really important that we're making sure we're getting the tolls we need based on the number of occupants in the vehicle, and it's applied appropriately, because otherwise funding, public funding that could be, that needs to be used correctly is being used correctly through this new technology that we're implementing. On the next slide, we highlight the past HOV system. So in the past, we had a self-declaration system with the manual enforcement out there. So a user would register, they would have to pre-declare. That pre-declaration information would go to the field device. A little light on the field device would come up and notify an officer in the field that this person has registered or declared themselves an HOV. The officer would try to have to look at the vehicle going very fast, over 70 miles an hour, and try to see how many people were in there. And then they would have to pull them over, give them a citation, and then it would go through a legal process from there. It would still be toll at the toll gantry. The toll would be applied based on the HOV status that they declared themselves as. It wasn't retrospect that we'd go back and change that. So those users that violated, yeah, they received citations, but they still received an HOV discount as part of that. And then our tolls are collected and those are billed through NTTA as our back office system. So that was another partner that we had as part of this project is NTTA. The next slide covers the enforcement agencies. So TxSTIC had partnered with Tarrant County and Dallas County Sheriff's Office to provide manual enforcement on these lanes. So you can kind of see by the counties where the enforcement was made and by what entity provided that manual enforcement during the self-declaration period of this project. As we move to the next slide, I just want to highlight some of the other challenges that we faced related to the manual enforcement side, the self-declaration and the manual enforcement. So the HOV registration was required 15 minutes in advance. So if somebody forgot to do it and they already started to travel towards that managed lane, they couldn't go in and self-declare because we didn't want them trying to do it while they were driving. So we did require a 15-minute pre-registration time period. Paying for officers out there in the field, it was costly, but it also did not provide full coverage. We would rotate officers to different corridors depending on the day. And so we didn't have full coverage to actually enforce it on all of our facilities every day, every peak period. So that was another limitation that we had. I talked about being able to count the number of people in the car while these vehicles traveled by them very quickly. It's not a very easy thing to do. In addition, the safety of the officers was another thing that, we worried about, having them pulling folks over on these high-speed facilities. It's dangerous to the officers, it's dangerous to the users, it's dangerous to the other travelers on the corridor. It also gets at the reliability of the corridor. So as you know, vehicles have to slow down. If an enforcement vehicle is on the side of the road, this would require the speeds to drop, which is really the purpose of these lanes, is to keep traffic moving and provide that reliability for those users of this system. And then the other thing that I briefly touched on was our violation rate we had with the self-declaration app that we had in the past. we had reported over 30% violations on some of our corridors. And so people were taking advantage of the system. And so we needed to find a way to make sure that that wasn't happening anymore without necessarily putting more pressure on the legal system. There's a way to do this with technology. Again, verifying the number of occupants, applying the right toll. It doesn't have to be part of the legal system through this new application. It's actually just applying the right toll based on the number of people that are in the car. The next slide highlights what was taken out of the process with the new application. So once a user registers, they're registered as a Karma user. When they start moving in their vehicle, it's determined how many occupants are in their car. That information is sent to the roadside devices. And then that is capturing the correct toll based on the number of occupants in that car. It's sent back to NTTA's back office and the correct toll is applied to that user's account. No pre-declaration, no enforcement needed out there. It's just really the exchange of data to apply the right toll based on the HOV status of that particular vehicle. And it is linked to their toll tag accounts as well. On the next slide, it covers kind of what the user's experience is. Again, they download the GoKarma app, they set up the occupant or the vehicle pass within their vehicle. And then that knows when they're in their vehicle and it sees how many people are in their car. They drive on the lane and then on their HOV statement or on their toll tag statement, they see that they received an HOV discount. So it's verified within the app as well as in NTTA's billing process. There are other options for people that don't have smartphones, small children, older adults. They can request an occupant pass in which they keep with them and it's detected when they're inside the vehicle. And so that's another option that we had to put in place because we do want to recognize those people that maybe don't have smartphones for them to use. The next slide I want to cover are really kind of the users of the system. So we transitioned in January from this self-declaration roadside enforcement system to an automated verification and charging the correct toll. The first 9 months, even with COVID, we've had 35,000 users. We have over 30,000 vehicles that are registered to the GoKarma system. There's been over 800,000 transactions. And then GoKarma is responsive to the customer service inquiries to try to educate people on how to use the system. And this is a process we've used and it's been very effective in managing those calls that come in and educating the public on usage of that. And they've actually had over 83% very satisfied in the GoKarma app now that they have understood how to utilize it. The next slide I do want to touch on a little bit focuses on our violations. So again, you know, this was a big item that we wanted to address is not allowing people that are not HOVs to take advantage of the system. So our violation system is set up in a way that data uses is analyzed, meaning proximity, movement, account, number of devices that are utilizing that app. And then a common example of this is somebody carrying 2 phones with them. How is that detected? Well, if those phones are always together, we know that something is not right, and that is one person carrying multiple devices. So we go through a process to educate and communicate out to the individual, and eventually it could get to the point in which their account's suspended and they are no longer eligible to receive the HOV discount. And that escalates as well. So they may not receive the discount for 30 days and it moves on to 60 days if they continue to do it, and then 90 days. And eventually it could get to the point that they're not eligible anytime in the future to get that HOV discount. So again, we have over 35,000 users. Violation rate on the app has really dropped from what the violation rate was from the self-declaration. We're about 2.7%. So we communicate after each violation to educate them. You shouldn't be doing that. We see that you have 2 phones with you all the time. That doesn't count as an HOV user. And so those communications go out regularly, and you can see on this slide, the percent changes based on the communications that are sent out. So after 4 communications about something, we usually get 99% compliance. We have had less than 1% app suspension, and that has just been for really a 30-day period. And then we do have the appeals process as well, if somebody wants to appeal their suspension to their account as part of that process. The next slide focuses just really on other kind of secondary or other indirect benefits of it. Again, improving safety of the users and the first responders, the reliability of the system, air quality. Obviously, if we can keep traffic moving, it helps improve air quality and congestion for our region. Privacy protection, when we started talking about this a lot, it talked about taking pictures of people. People don't really like their picture taken. So this type of technology allows for no pictures to be taken, which people feel a little bit more comfortable with. It's very expandable because it's all based on geofencing around our managed lane facilities. So you can expand or contract that geospace to other corridors. And then we got it kind of out of the legal and the court system because it just isn't something that really needs to go to that court system. It can be, I guess, accomplished through technology versus going through a court system. And the next slide are just things we're continuing to monitor as we implement it. One, looking at implementation on other corridors in terms of promoting alternative commutes. It could be carpooling. It could also allow us to track people that may want to bike or walk to and from their workplace, and they could get rewards for that type of activity. We had worked very closely with all the parties on a communication plan and a marketing plan. Our marketing plan has been somewhat put on hold after the go live date due to COVID. We do hope to get that up and running again in the spring of 2021. Again, institutional and legislative items, we continue to monitor that to make sure that this technology isn't violating any of those items. So those are just a few things we're continuing to monitor and work through as the project is implemented and continues to be expanded on. And the last slide just focuses kind of on some of our other ideas related to rewarding HOVs. So again, the first phase has been on this managed lane, providing that 50% toll discount. We want to expand it to other corridors, again, to look, could we apply an incentive versus a toll rate to other corridors if folks carpool to special events to help reduce traffic around event venues? Could we possibly add it on major congested corridors to promote alternatives to driving by themselves, in which they get additional incentives if they carpool with somebody or ride transit on that route or bike or walk? So we're looking at how can we apply it to other corridors to, again, help deal with congestion and demand requirements for those corridors to help sustain the life of our roadway system and possibly increase the use of some of these other modes within our region. So that's kind of where we're headed towards in terms of the future of the program. And I'll be happy to take any questions at this time.
We already have one question from Uganda, and he was asking, is this similar to the Xerox program used in California? What are fail-safe elements to reduce mistakes?
So my understanding of the Xerox, at least when we went out for procurement for this, was it is a switchable tag type system, or it required a picture of somebody taking pictures inside a vehicle. So this is not anything like that. There's no roadside devices as part of this deployment. It's all on people's smartphones and using geofencing around the managed lane facilities to look, okay, how many people are in the car? I see 2 people, they get the HOV status, or I see 1 person, they're not HOV status. So it's a little bit different than the Xerox program, meaning that it's not a switchable type tag. There's tags that switch HOV versus SOV. Again, that would be a self-declaration type system. And then there's other technology where they take pictures inside a car. You drive by and it takes your picture to try to count how many people are in there and we're not in the in the business of taking video or pictures of people with this application.
Okay. Did that answer your question, Uganda?
Yes, to an extent, I appreciate that. I just have one more follow-up question, if you may indulge
Go
me.
ahead.
Okay, you said something about somebody having two phones. Some of us have one for the office and one that is private, cell phones, okay? What if you have a child that doesn't have a phone with you in the car and you have to drop the child off in school or in a daycare prior to getting to work, and you still have to use the managed lanes? Does it take into consideration that you have two people? Yes, I understand you say it doesn't take pictures. However, it can identify people in a vehicle. Is that correct? Or?
Yeah, it uses Bluetooth technology to identify devices in the vehicle. So if a younger child doesn't have a smartphone, or the parent would not want to put it on a smartphone, the app, there is such thing as an occupant pass, which is a little disc-shaped pass that you keep like in a child's diaper bag or a backpack. It's not active unless it's connected to a cell phone, but it would recognize that person, that child, that older adult that maybe doesn't have a smartphone in the vehicle. So it would get the toll rate when that child and their occupant pass is in the vehicle. But when you take it out of the vehicle to drop them off, that occupant pass would not be in the vehicle. And so any tolls they pass after that would be charged at the full toll rate, not the HOV discounted rate.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Natalie. I think that's a great innovation. And I would have, like I said, loved to have had it when I lived in the Dallas area. And so that being said, what are the costs like associated? Are you seeing like cost savings or just potential for savings all around? How does it look for NCT COGS costs?
So, I mean, our initial setup of the program obviously cost a little bit to get it initiated, but then we pay just an annual fee to Karma to maintain it, so we can expand it to other corridors, like I said, and there's not an additional cost for that. And so it's very close to the cost we were expending for our enforcement, the manual enforcement that was out there, but it does provide some safety type savings, some congestion type savings on top of that effort.
Okay, great. Yeah, that really sounds like a great program. I'm so glad y'all are doing it. And I do agree that even though there were those disadvantages initially, I can see how you made this really work well. And I think the benefits pretty much would, like you said, kind of nullify that cost, that initial cost, and then that maintenance cost. So I think you're definitely on the right track. And I imagine if anybody's interested in this in other areas, that they could probably contact you and find out more.
Yes, yeah, they're welcome to contact me. We did set our contract up that it could be utilized by other folks in the state. So there is the opportunity for that. Obviously, I'll get you in contact with our procurement team who knows more of the details behind that, but the contract was set up so it could be expandable with, throughout the state of Texas, that could be billed off of our contract. So you might not have to go out for a new procurement, as we already went out for procurement to procure this technology.
Great. And if anyone has any other questions, feel free to chime in. Jenny, I thought I saw you unmuted, but I guess you're okay. All right. So that being said, let's go on to our next innovation. There's Natalie's contact information there. I see it just kind of flashed up. But yeah, that will also be available on the slides when we put them up on the STIC website. And if you need that link, just let us know. Maybe we can throw it in the chat before the end of the meeting. So basically, this was one of our innovations that Natalie just went over. And now we have another one that's also very exciting and looks at, really making a win for first responders and communication between groups that might be addressing an emergency or some type of situation involving roadways. So I think you're going to enjoy talking to Susan. Susan, thank you for being here. I know you really are dedicated to this, and I also would have understood if you did not make it today. So I'm glad you came and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Shelley. Yeah, it was a bit of an unknown if I'd make it. I was one of those COVID positives in the last few weeks. As soon as I was asked to present, I ended up sick, and the last few weeks I've been healing, so feeling much better. Everyone stay safe. I think I got it from my child, unfortunately, but we've been staying indoors. So I don't think I can share until you unshare your screen. I'm having a little, okay. All right. How does that look?
Looks good. I can see it.
Okay, I just want to make sure you're seeing the right screen. Okay, we use Teams. So in 2008, I'm here to talk to you about SAFER, which is situational awareness for emergency response. And in 2008, the City of Frisco leadership had a vision to provide first responders critical information through a common operating picture. Though the city originally invested in a third-party solution, we found it didn't adequately accomplish the mission and in its entirety, and no existing commercial off-the-shelf product that we could find really could accomplish that mission. So city staff quickly realized the in-house development of a geospatial platform for situational awareness, taking advantage of the city's GIS system, was essential. Hence, SAFER was born. One of the keys to the success of SAFER has been the partnerships that have been built between the City of Frisco and the school district, as well as the collaboration between city departments, specifically fire, police, traffic engineering, and IT, working closely together to innovate. Since its infancy, SAFER has grown into a highly effective multilateral program, increasingly dependent upon integrated systems. It is, along with 911, our very most critical app in the city. So some of the benefits that we've experienced that I'll be sharing today: the common operating picture. First responders, dispatchers, and traffic engineers all have the same incident view, allowing for better collaboration. Incident management through CTD, road closures, Waze, AVL, traffic, video sharing, and automated routing. It allows staff to take action early on in an incident, ultimately clearing the roads faster. Geovisualization, visualizing data so that it's easier for the users to see and understand an incident. And those partnerships. The program really has facilitated collaboration between transportation, traffic engineering, and our first responders, allowing for that common vision. And an intuitive user interface. SAFER really requires very minimal training for the end users, and it's very intuitive to use. So in short, SAFER is a platform for visualizing data. Much of the data in SAFER is business data coming from various data sources through the numerous integrations that we've built. GIS is the platform and really the foundation of SAFER, and of course is our largest integration for the product. We have over 100 layers of information, geospatial information available. As you can see, here's some of them, including floor plans for all the schools and high occupancy facilities in the city. In the following slides, you'll see SAFER isn't really just a GIS mapping application. It's there are dozens of integration points with services, jobs, and processes running behind the scenes to support the platform. Historically, having access to camera systems has proven extremely valuable. The information helps prior to arrival, confirming the location, how many vehicles may be involved, and allows dispatchers and first responders insight into the accident. They can see if there's a car on fire or if an extrication is needed. And if so, dispatchers can give first responders more information prior to their arrival, thus helping in the response, possibly identifying if more resources are needed. Often, police officers can't really navigate their screen while they're driving to an incident. And so though they have access to this information, they often rely on dispatchers to transmit the information. We have integrated with 3 camera systems, Milestone with over 600 traffic cameras, Salient with over 4,000 school cameras, and a Visualon. We're implementing that for facility cameras within the city of Frisco. All the camera locations are on the map, and just by clicking on the map, you can the streaming video appears. And here's some examples of that. So in 2018, the city of Frisco joined the Waze CCP and began efforts to build a bidirectional integration with Waze. In Safer, designated staff already had permissions to add road closures. These road closures are used for routing, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But those closures and barriers are sent to Waze, and the initial effort sends these closures via an XML feed to Waze, along with all traffic related calls for service that we get from our 911 dispatch center. So here you can see what the road closure looks like in Safer on the left. And then on the right, this is what it's translated to in Waze. This past year, we expanded the feed to include work orders for lane closures generated in our work order management system, CityWorks. So if we were already managing through the work order management, that we were working on a road for not only work order, but asset management purposes. And then we just took that information and now sharing it in that same feed to Waze. And here's an example of the road closure, sorry, the lane closures. And I failed to mention, sorry, the traffic incidents as well. So this is what a traffic incident looks like in Safer on the left. And then on the right, the what it translates to in Waze. Frisco also receives information from Waze, allowing us to consume their traffic jam incidents and road hazards. These features are displayed in Safer, and we've also built a series of dashboards for traffic engineering to analyze the Waze information in a little bit more detail. It's not Safer specific, but I thought you might be interested in seeing some of the dashboard images that we've built. The Closest to Dispatch project allowed an increased efficiency in dispatching closest available units via business logic and the vehicle locations, along with the road network algorithms, rather than just dispatching solely based on district assignments. CTD improves response times in priority calls and aids the fire department by identifying calls in which certain apparatuses do not require dispatching, thus freeing up their availability for more severe calls. Grant funding was secured related to a traffic incident management grant. So some of the goals of the project were to aid Frisco and fire and police in response, to clear crash scenes quicker, decrease the amount of time it takes to dispatch units, decrease the amount of time it takes for the first unit to arrive on scene, and utilizing the city GIS data and services wherever possible to maximize effectiveness of the CTD. Ultimately, we found that this reduced the time the incident is blocking the roadway, reducing congestion and preventing a secondary crash, improving safety for the first responders and everyone involved. Another important aspect of the CTD program in SAFER is the automated vehicle location, providing first responder locations. This screenshot was taken during an incident in which a state trooper was shot and the gunman barricaded himself in an apartment building. You'll see in the police units in blue and fire in red, and graphics that were created by command staff directing staff of operational details. With access to this type of information, traffic engineering was able to begin working on ways to mitigate traffic issues. Wireless 911 caller locations are also available, as well as an enhanced caller location provided by Rapid SOS, allowing dispatchers and responders better information about the incident location and extent of the incident. During an incident involving hazardous materials, the hazmat team uses a software called Peak to generate a plume. They access weather information available in SAFER to help generate that plume. And once generated, the integration presents the plume in SAFER for all first responders to see the affected areas. They can start taking action in perhaps evacuating sites or notifying folks within that area. We have numerous SharePoint integrations as well. This is when several of our business data opportunities are managed in SharePoint lists in GIS, and we pull that information to present to the users. In this example, you see access codes for responders to gain access to secure areas. We have gate codes and apartment access, as well as sometimes physical access to a building. Our partners, traffic engineering, police, fire, and FISD have given us a lot of feedback over the years for future integrations that they'd like to see in SAFER. Here are some of the relevant integration points that we've planned for the next few years. And we definitely have our work cut out for us. This next year, we'll be working with our traffic engineering group on real-time traffic integration for routing calls and using the CTD, taking into consideration real-time traffic data and congestion. So these are just some of the integrations that we've earmarked for the next few years. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to talk about our product and that we've built and you know, answer any questions you might have.
Well, I don't see any questions in the chat at the moment, but they might form. Darren, do you have a question?
What's the opportunity for sharing this?
It's a great question, and I didn't include that in the slide. So we have just built and refactored all of our code over the last year in a way that we can begin considering sharing the product. Like I described, originally we purchased a software application to present most of this information. And the vendor didn't have a web-based solution. So we built a web-based solution. And after a little bit of time, this is a number of years ago, we found most of our first responders were using the product that we built. So we started enhancing that product and sunsetted the one that we purchased. We never really intended on building a product. And so nor did we intend on sharing it. It just kind of happened organically. So this last year, David Schuster came on board, who is our senior software developer, who's built our newest product. And part of his charge over the last year was to take all the code and organize it in such a way that perhaps in the future we can start sharing with other entities. We'd like to expand with our surrounding municipalities and entities. At minimum, we'd like to be able to do that. And then given resources and opportunity, sharing with others, we've spoken with several entities in Texas as well as outside of Texas about the opportunity and the interest that there might be in sharing. So it's just a matter of time and resource. It's a great question though.
And when you say you built it on, so it's built in, overlaid on ArcGIS Online, is that how it's architected?
So no, the product is a desktop application at this point. The majority of our users access it that way. And it was built in ArcGIS runtime. And so we do have plans to expand to build a mobile app device, a native device app. ArcGIS Online products, though we have, I think, probably over 100 applications that we've built on ArcGIS Online, and they're fantastic. It doesn't really allow for the customization that we require with this product, and the it's just more conducive to building a product than using an ArcGIS Online web app or customizing one. So
we had one more question pop up in the chat, and it's from Natalie. Do you all have performance measures on improvements on response times or other measures related to response and clearance of crashes that you could share?
Yes, we report that information as part of the CTD grant opportunity that we had we went into effect in 2018. I believe at the end of each year, we report that information back out to the COG so they can, it's easy to see what the average response times and such were. So we can share that information, and we'll be building the next report here in the next few weeks, as a matter of fact.
I guess this is Brian from Frisco. Just to add to that for Natalie, I know, as Susan mentioned, Natalie, we send that information over. I think the first year we saw anywhere from 30 to 45-second decrease in response time. The following year, that number wasn't as large, but at the same time, fire actually saw a 25% increase in the number of calls for service. So we were still down, maintained an improvement despite seeing an increase in the number of calls, and we didn't add any stations or resources. So it worked out in that sense. I think some of the other things, when we look at the TIM timeline on your time to clear, we've built those. So those are reported as well, what we're seeing there. Working with the police department, I think, to begin to place more focus on that now. What can we do to improve that time that the roadway is closed, and that clearance time? Can we begin to reduce those or benchmark those types of things? And then the secondary crashes, are the CAD systems able to keep track of that as well? I think we're seeing probably some times maybe where the officers aren't radioing that back all the time. So those numbers have been low. I think this last year when we sent the data for 2019, it showed 0 secondary crashes that occurred. The previous 2 years, there were some small numbers that were recorded in that sense. And then also the time to recover is another item. I think seeing that, I don't know, for all of you, COG had a demo yesterday with the iTerra system Clear Guide, and it had really was able to use the here travel time data to look at if we could go pinpoint an incident time after the fact, and then look at how traffic recovered to be able to report that back. So seeing if we can reduce that response time as our return to normal time getting a lot better. That's something I think has potential in the future as well to improve the various things that we're measuring.
Thank you for that. And so we have another question from Kirk or Susan and, Brian, if you want to chime in. So can SAFER provide for scenario analyses for different emergency response practice runs by the city of Frisco? And how is TxDOT informed and shared with this information? That was going to be my question as well. Was that clear?
So I think Brian might need to answer that first question, or actually all of it.
I mean, I guess when we do, as we go through the various NIMS training and different things and do tabletop exercises, I could see it factored in where we've done some practice things here. We've got a railroad that runs through the center of town, and with the FC Dallas's stadium right nearby, we've done some things where you had like a hazmat spill, and what if the soccer game's going on at the same time, and kind of leveraging how you can do that. I know the tool, one of the things that was really cool that I see the first responders being able to, when they do respond, and Susan could, I guess, would have to verify on this, but it seems it could be done in a practice situation. I know in real time, what you saw in that DPS officer shooting is just being able to start to mark up on the map that everybody on their mobile data computer can see what the plan is. If they're saying, okay, on the map, this is the staging area where people are where we need all the responders to stage. Here's the evacuation. If we get people out, this is where we need them to go. I'm beginning to mark all those things up in real time. And I think if they've used that, Susan, on like some of the practice scenarios that you know of, I can't recall.
Yes,
on some of the trainings.
They do. They have used it, and one of in training opportunities, and when they have new cadets and new firefighters, they do also train in the product. But part of the beauty and the concept of SAFER from the very beginning was they wanted to use SAFER on all calls for service. So every call, everything they do, they have this product up on their mobile devices. And so they know how to use the product because they're using it all day long. It's not a specific product used for an emergency, it's for all incidents. And so it gives them that level of understanding and comfort with the product because they use it all the time. And so that was one of the charges from the very beginning when the school district actually came to us and they said, well, we want you to put floor plans in. So when there's a school incident, well, it's not just for school incidents, it's for all incidents. And so though there are training exercises for more specific and a lot of testing done for more specific incidents like a hazmat incident or a large incident like the trooper shooting, they use it all the time. And so it's become second nature. And so then I think the part two of your question also is back to Brian. Sorry about that, Brian. Thanks for being available as far as
So I don't think there hasn't been anything, we don't have any freeway facilities. We're surrounded by NTTA and the toll facilities. So we've been working on trying to do some video sharing with NTTA. We're beginning some video sharing with the city of Plano, where things like that can be in. I know through the TSMO interviews and process that's been going on, at least as I've been answering questions on Frisco's behalf, it's kind of with this in background or in the back of my mind on getting first responders and traffic people working together. We have so many resources that can help each other out. And usually, oftentimes, maybe we don't realize it. At an IT meeting recently, you had the state of Washington, the Seattle area, they're working on building a product like this. And I had offered to reach out to them to let Susan kind of demonstrate and share all the lessons we've learned in the work they were doing. One of the questions I asked him, I said, so are you going to provide video for your first responders? And he goes, well, no, that's not something I've requested. And I kind of turned it around and said, well, if you actually showed them what it maybe could do, because I don't think they realize it. If they haven't consumed it or seen it before, they may not realize how it can benefit them. And once they knew that, they're going to be asking you for every camera you can provide them. They're going to be wanting and looking for. I don't know if this would somehow, if you think of like Lone Star, because we don't since we don't have any of the TxSTIC freeway facilities that surround us. So that hasn't been, I guess, an active integration or something searched out yet at this point. Open to ideas, and I guess kind of where my funding question came earlier was, if there's more things, when Susan talks about just the resources and things that are needed to make it more widely available, the effort that takes here locally to do that, are there ways that we can bring some funding to the table that maybe can help that continue and happen or happen more quickly even?
Okay, we're working on getting those slides shared again. But thank you, Brian, and thank you, Susan, for that. We have one more question from Uganda. Oh, yeah, well, one in particular. How do you monitor secondary crashes and end of queue verification and clearance?
So right now, what's done is if a secondary crash would occur, it would depend on the officers on scene to decide, well, this one is related to the other. And so that's then tracked in the CAD system. So as they're talking back and forth with the dispatcher, then that's how that would get tagged through the dispatching process. As far as the times and the clearance time, they will report back, when the roadway is clear, that time is marked when whoever's on scene informs the dispatcher, all right, we have the roadway clear, all lanes are reopened. So that's a point in time. And then once they actually clear the scene and leave, because sometimes maybe, okay, the roadway's open, but they're still out there doing something with it, or maybe the tow truck, the thing's moved off onto the parking lot side. But all those points in time are then tracked through the dispatching process. And then there's a routine that runs afterwards to look at all those things on the CAD side to then summarize that in a report that we send out to COG to report the various points in time on the TIM timeline.
Great. I do see there could be potential with US 75 maybe, but yeah, I think the Dallas district might be interested in hearing what you guys are up to, but I think I can work on informing them just so they're aware, and hey, if they have questions, they can contact, should they contact Susan or you, Brian?
Yeah, either one, they can reach out to either of us. I know Tom and Natalie have been assisting us on trying to do some things and within the staff over there working with things they're trying to do on the I-30 corridor, but certainly either of us they could reach out to.
Wonderful, thank you for that. And I'm so glad y'all are willing to present today. I think this is a great project and clearly there's a lot of interest. That being said, I do believe we're at a point where if you're just here, participating just to listen in, you're welcome to go, or you can stay and listen. We're just going to go around the council members and ask them if they have anything that they want to go over. And also, if there are any questions from them, now's a great time for them to chime in and say, what they have going, or if they just want to know more about these things. And one more thing to consider is, when we think of innovation, I know Al described it earlier for us, we basically could innovate in many ways. It doesn't have to be high tech or, GIS based, but those are just a lot of the things that are very accessible to people now and very able to be used across different groups. And so I think it's interesting to see. There's also, other types of innovation where we might just be improving a process or something that might save lives, or it could just be, an improvement in the way things are done on the road, or anything to that effect. So we're interested in hearing about those things. And, remember, we're here to share with each other. And TxSTIC, we do have a lot of things that are going on, but we also rely on our STIC members to help us, to know and keep a pulse on the things that are important to you and that we can help, related to infrastructure or things like that, that we can all be working together to make better. So if you're just joining us just for this council roundtable, then now is a great time for you to say your moments, your 1 to 2 minutes, whatever you've been doing. I can go down the list if needed, but I think right now we could just start with Darren to close this out. But you know, with any big comments you might have, Darren?
Well, thought we were going to ask the other people.
We are, but you're motivating them.
No, look, I'm excited about both of them. I see the value of the HOV occupancy detection system. You know, I'm fascinated by the technology solution set of that. I've seen other approaches where they try to use cameras to do it, and I think this is an interesting way to capitalize on technology and not have to get into all the challenges of using cameras to do it. So I think that's certainly applicable to, you know, other tolling agencies in the state, but also has the opportunity to be used for other applications. I was trying to think of a few, but I didn't want to, you know, it just depends on what certain public needs are to count people and vehicles. And if there's just an easier non-technical way to do it, obviously. And then, yeah, I already fired a note off to the chief engineer and the senior engineers in the department about the Frisco's tool, and said, you know, because we're working at TxSTIC to build a number of applications on top of GIS as well for our needs. And obviously there's some overlap there in emergency operations and the idea, you know, the earlier discussion about the tracking the de-icers. That's another application that has relevance to emergency operations as well as just overall what we put on Drive Texas and things like that. So I think there's a lot of nice overlaps happening in the Esri GIS environment that are really positive. And I think that, you know, I think it'd be valuable at least to have Dallas District, but certainly I'd love to see our senior engineers look at what Frisco's done and see if we can't help them in terms of resources at some point, but also, you know, how could we adopt some of that code and that effort and not have to reinvent the wheel? That's what I really love about a forum like this, is trying to help scale great ideas. It's kind of what we do in the Innovation Alliance and in other efforts, but to take research and innovation and scale that as well across the state, I think is what the real power is of what we just covered. And the same is true of the everyday count. I mean, you know, the weather one was an everyday, or is an everyday counts project. So, you know, same opportunity to take the everyday counts projects that we covered, dive deep into those in the coming, you know, couple of weeks, listen to what's said at the national forum, and maybe we can take some of those at the local and potentially the district level and TxDOT or the division level and apply them, and then from those results share those more broadly across the state, which again is what I think is the power of this organization. How's that?
That was great. Thank you. So at this point, I could either go down the list, or if you just want to volunteer. It looks like David, did you want to say anything? Let's see, I think. So I see that Natalie has a quick update on another project. Go ahead, Natalie.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up we're working on kind of the next generation for our traffic signal program. And really what we're looking at is establishing kind of minimum standards of equipment that needs to be deployed at our intersections. Within the Dallas-Fort Worth region, we have over 7,000 intersections. And so different agencies maintain those at different levels, is what we have learned over the years. And so our goal is working with our partner agencies to come up with a minimum standard, inventorying all of our signals within our region, keeping that information in some type of online GIS platform so that we can continue to monitor any improvements to those minimum equipment standards in the field. But then on the other hand, we're also going to be looking at maybe a third-party platform that looks at signal performance. So we'll look at what the minimum standard is for equipment. We'll complement that with the performance of the traffic signals, looking at delay at signals, looking at arrivals on red, other types of performance measures that we'll work with our regional partners with to really get more of a comprehensive review of our signals. And it'll help us target where we spend funding, traffic signal funding, for in the future. And it also helps us identify what the needed improvement is. Is it the equipment that's in the field? Is it retiming that's needed? Or is just the intersection over capacity and the technology isn't going to solve that problem? So that's kind of the new approach we're taking with our signal program. We're going out for procurement for a new consultant tomorrow or Friday. I thought tomorrow was Friday, but it's Thursday. So Friday we have a procurement that's going to be released to bring a consultant on board to help us work through this with our partner agencies as we kind of take a new approach to looking at signal improvements. And then we have been engaging Tom and his group as it relates to minimum standards for connected autonomous vehicles at those intersections as well. So I think eventually we'll continue to add different types of technology at the intersections, as well as how do we share the data from the intersections with kind of those auto manufacturers or third-party folks that might be able to utilize that and get it in the vehicle so folks can better travel along a corridor.
That is a fantastic update. Thank you for that. So another thing I'm going to do, I think I'm just going to literally go down the list so that I give everyone an opportunity. So do we have anybody from the Associated General Contractors of Texas? Maybe the Austin chapter? Okay. If we do, you're welcome to chime in. It looks like we have Gary here from the American Council of Engineering Companies of Texas. Did you have anything you wanted to say today? You might be muted. Okay, so we'll move on to the Texas Association of County Engineers and Road Administrators. Anybody here is Joe or someone on his team here? No, and so we'll just, instead of going down to everyone, it does look like the next one is Andrea with Texas Department of Parks and Wildlife. Is there anything that you guys want to tell us or mention today?
Hi, Shelley, this is Andrea. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. I don't have anything to add. Kevin, Pete, and I had a good discussion last week about some of the things that we're working on that might be some good options for future meetings. And Scott Smith joined me today on the call, and he is our project manager for a lot of our road projects at state parks. And he works very closely with TxDOT. He's a former TxDOT employee. So we're going to be brainstorming to see if there are any transportation issues that or innovations that that we're aware of that we could bring to the group. But thank you all, particularly to all of your staff that worked so hard to put this together. We are dealing with the same issues you are at TVWD. So I know how much harder it is to coordinate meetings like this during this time. So thank you all. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. And you brought up Kevin. He did want to say hi to everyone. He's in training today, but he was sad he couldn't be here. That's why you didn't hear from him today, but he's still around and he'll probably be back for the next meeting. So after Andrea, we can do David. David, are you on? David Palmer? David Palmer, are you on?
Yes, ma'am, I am. I'm sorry. Some technical difficulties there. No, I don't really have anything to add. I do appreciate the information that was put out. It's a lot of good stuff, and thanks for allowing us to participate.
Well, we're glad to have you. And if any time there's anything you think that we can provide for you, support or anything, then just let us know, or topics y'all are having issues with, or you just want to tell us what y'all are doing, then that would be wonderful.
Okay, will do. Thank you very much.
Okay, and then next we have, let's see, after David, is anybody from the North Texas Tollway Authority, ETA, that would like to say something? Not today. How about CTRMA? Is anybody here? It looks like we might have Jeff.
Yes,
Cool.
sorry, I was on mute. No, yeah, I just want to report on that we recently went out for a procurement for basically artificial our artificial intelligence connected vehicle traffic system. We call it an advanced system, and it's called Waycare. And in fact, it was one of the vendors that presented it at Darren's the task force meeting that piqued our interest. And so that's going to go live here in November. But basically, it combines the data of the roadside along with connected vehicle information. So you basically use the vehicles as sensors out there. They can detect traffic flow changes or incidents and actually get into predictive analytics. So we've set that up, and we're looking forward to, at some point in the future, reporting on the results of that. We also set it up so that TxSTIC or any of the other partners here in Central Texas could jump onto it. But the results are very promising. Las Vegas uses it, very happy with it. Could reduce, infrastructure costs, the roadside infrastructure. The other thing we did was did a partnership with CAPS. CAPS is our toll system integrator, but there was kind of an unsolicited proposal came to us to test out a new tolling system with Ford, CAPS and Ford. And so they've gone through and did some runs on that. It's going to be the future GPS tolling type system or third-party tolling. So that's just kicked off. That's a year agreement. And so again, we look forward to promoting that. The only other thing we have is that we do have a program or a plan to expand the roadside units on our roadways in cooperation with TxSTIC. So we look to do something with that, with some fleet vehicles or whatever. The bottom line is to provide the real-time location-based information to drivers. We think that could be doable within 3 to 5 years if we focus on that. And that Waycare system could be kind of central to that. So that's our report.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that information. It's exciting to hear what you guys are doing. So definitely keep us apprised.
Will do.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. And then we have Tempo. Is there anybody from Tempo today? Maybe Ashby? Or someone on behalf of Ashby? No? Okay, how about, is Brian on today, Aaron? Did he have anything he wanted to update us on?
Yes, Shelley, I'm on.
Great.
Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to visit real quick. Brian Sims with the Texas LTAP program. Just a couple of quick items. One, and most importantly for me, I'd like to introduce Erin Townsend. Erin is our new Texas LTAP manager. She's come on board in the last couple of months, and she's helping facilitate the technology of this meeting today. So I wanted to introduce Erin as a new LTAP employee and someone you can reach out to, obviously, with any questions for the LTAP program. And wanted to make folks aware that the LTAP program has a new STIC incentive award for transportation workforce development. We're very proud of that, and we're about a month and a half into the work associated with that. And basically what the core of that is to develop some core competencies associated with workforce needs within LPAs and MPOs across the state. So we will be working with various entities across the state, human resource department, city managers, folks of that nature, to determine and assist in developing what those core competencies are. They could be anything from heavy equipment operator trainers to truck driver competencies to maintenance, various different workforce needs. And then once we've got those competencies, we will start looking for resources that are already no cost or low cost resources that are already available across the state and the nation, and start matching those resources with those core competencies. So that project will be continuing through this fiscal year. And wanted to just speak to that real quick. And then one last item, Shelley. Obviously, since the pandemic has occurred, we've all worked differently. But I wanted to just to demonstrate the diversity of our state. We are still conducting in-person training classes across the state of Texas as an LTAP program. We still have instructors that are traveling to various places, some many rural, but some are urban areas of much larger metropolitan areas. So just for an example, last month, in the month of October, we conducted 38 classes that were in person and trained 348 participants. Now, obviously, there is a lot of safety precautions that have to come into play to do that. And the facilities and the different constituents are very good about assisting in that process of social distancing and wearing masks and sanitizing and things of that nature. But just wanted to make you aware that even in this difficult time of this pandemic, we are still able to provide that training to our constituents across the state. And we do have virtual training courses that are occurring also. So that's my report. Thank you, Shelley, for the opportunity.
Great. I appreciate that, Brian, for sure. That was a good update. And you pretty much covered a lot of the big ticket things right now. So for LTAP. So I noticed that in the chat, we had a few comments. It looks like y'all might have handled them yourself, but basically it looks like the question was about, did you say that the procurement is complete? And okay. And it looks like there might have been a response to that. Okay, so yes, was that correct? It's hard to tell that it's to that comment.
Yes, that's to that. It's been completed and awarded to Waycare, and it's currently being implemented.
Great.
This is Mia.
Hi, Mia. Thank you for speaking up. And then Darren had another question. Is the CAPS thing on a specific road or whole system?
Yeah, the CAPS is with CAPS and Ford. Their partnership together to test the in-vehicle tolling. So it's on the Mopac Expressway.
Great. Thank you so much for responding to that. Okay, the next group we have, so let's see, Ashby, Brian. Tiffany with American Society of Civil Engineers, Texas chapter. Is Tiffany on or someone on her behalf?
Yes, Tiffany's on, but I'm going to let Sean, our president, give the update for ASCE.
Great. Thank you both for being here. Go ahead, Sean.
Thanks, Tiffany. Yeah, my name is Sean Merrill. I'm the current president for ASC Texas section. One of the big projects we're working on is our infrastructure report card. We produce this report card every 4 years. We developed this report card depicting the condition and performance of Texas infrastructure in a familiar form, kind of like a school report card, assigning letter grades based on the physical condition and needed improvements, investments for improvements. And it serves an important role in raising public awareness and providing elected officials the necessary tools to support infrastructure funding. So we're just about done with that report card. We've actually got 12 different categories. About 55 people have been working on it, and it will be released in time for our legislative drive-in in February or March. So once it's released, I'll be sure to get everybody a copy of it that's associated with this group. But that's something to look forward to use when you go to talk to your legislators about improved funding for infrastructure. 3 of the categories that would probably pique your interest would be transit, highway and roads, and aviation for this group. Those would probably be the 3 categories that you would be most interested in.
Thank you for that, Sean. I appreciate that. And we do need to know what you guys are interested in. And if you have nothing else to say, then that's something that will help us so we can target those areas. Brian Moen, did you have anything else you wanted to say for Frisco, or are you good?
I'm good. And I don't know, when you get to TxSTIC, it looked like Paul might have, because I know he's going to take the place as the TxSTIC member, but I can fill in for that when you're ready.
Go ahead, you can do that now.
Okay, so TxSTIC, we've been able to continue our meetings, obviously, kind of as everyone's done here. And then we're focusing on safety, and then also just all modes. A lot of us all grown up worrying about cars and getting good at that, and realizing we need to be thinking more broadly. So just mobility in general, things on innovative intersections. we will be working on. We're going to have a joint meeting next year with ITS Texas that they may talk about some as well. And as we're planning for our next meeting, probably reach out to Darren, but some things maybe from the CAV task force to kind of begin to push that information out into the various organizations that can help play some support roles of what the task force does.
Great, that was a very good rundown. And thank you for that, Brian. Do we have anybody from the Texas Transit Association today? How about Harris County Engineering Department? And then Natalie has said a lot of great things today. Is there anything you wanted to point out for topics, maybe, Natalie?
I just had a question on that that infrastructure report from ASCE, I believe. I was just wondering how that relates to our federal performance measures on bridge and pavement conditions and their transit assets. I mean, is some of that the same information that's going into those performance reports that we report to Federal Highway, or are they different? I was just wondering.
Does anybody have any information on that? Natalie, you cut out a little bit when you said what the main thing was that you were asking about. What was it in regards to?
The infrastructure report card that was just reported on by ASCE. They talked about roads, transit, and airports on Texas infrastructure. So I'm just wondering, is there any relationship to that data to FHWA performance data that we have to report annually on bridge and pavement conditions as well as transit assets?
Kirk, are you still on? Do you have?
Yes, I'm still here. As far as I understand, ASCE puts out a letter grade score. Like I think we got like a D last time on highways. I mean, it's more of a qualitative score. It's not related to the performance-based planning and programming that we're accustomed to at Federal Highway and the MPO. The ASCE rep could probably tell you more, but I'm thinking that the closest thing it would be a proxy to is the conditions and performance report that Federal Highways or DOT puts out every couple years. And even that report is more specific, using HPMS data and pavement management system data to come up with the pavement scores, and the bridge management system to come up with the bridge scores based on actual data that we can quantify. But I'm not sure how the ASC comes up with our qualitative letter grade scores, but it's not related to the performance-based planning as far as I understand it.
This is Tiffany with ASCE. I don't know if Sean is still on, but if he is, he could speak more to this. I can say that it's a very high level overview of conditions. So what we're looking to do is kind of grade the overall conditions, and TxDOT doesn't maintain all the roads and bridges that are included in the report card. So that's kind of important too, is to state that this is a very general, it's done by consultants and volunteers from agencies and experts in the field. And we will look at, in a very general way, what the conditions are of roadways, bridges, transportation, even metro and rail and all of that. And that all kind of goes into a grouping or a category. So maybe we'll look at the number of deficient dams or bridges and what are those conditions. And it's really more of a very high level overview to help drive talking points for legislators, help to use in government affairs and outreach to get funding to the places where it's most needed in the state. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
And I believe even NetCog we may be sending some for like flooding or things like that to have agency review prior to release. So we try to get as many eyes on it as possible, so it's more peer reviewed.
And it looks like Sean posted that report card, a link to that if you would like to take a look at that, if anybody would like to. You're welcome, Natalie. Thank you. So Jackie, are you here? Women in Transportation, or on her behalf? I don't hear any. Okay, so anybody from AMPO or Alamo Area Metropolitan Planning Organization? And then we have El Paso after that. El Paso MPO, anybody? Maybe Roger? Okay, and then last but not least, the Texas General Land Office. Is Alan here? And some people might have had to drop off as well. But if anyone who I didn't cover or ask has anything to say, now is the time before we adjourn.
Hey, Shelley, this is Tony Voigt from ITS Texas.
Hey, Tony.
Just a quick update. We had our first virtual annual meeting last Tuesday, November 10th, had about 200 participants, several good speakers. And I did want to mention Jing-Ming Ma was our individual award winner for this past year for moving ITS forward in Texas, and Campo won the project award for their regional open roads policy. As Brian mentioned, we're working on a 2021 annual meeting jointly with TxSTIC in the Dallas area, and the two boards are working to firm up a location and a date, most likely September, October, November, more towards November. We had about 600 folks at our last joint meeting, so pending what happens with COVID, we're looking forward to a fairly large meeting up in Dallas later next year. So as always, appreciate the ability to come in and update folks and participate in the council. Thank you.
I'm glad you're able to speak on that. Thank you so much for that. And with that, the only other thing I wanted to tell you is look for a meeting to be scheduled probably in either late March or April, but before the end of April. So we're gonna start looking at everybody's calendars, see if we can get everybody in the room at the same time. We try to accommodate your schedules the best we can. We'll probably send out a doodle poll. And if anyone else has any other closing remarks, feel free to chime in. I just want to thank everybody for being here. And I think this was a good and successful meeting. Thank you for the presenters and the time that you spent on this.
Shelley, this is Darren. Just a quick question of Tony. I know he said 3 months, but if it's November, are you looking primarily at the first or second week of November? Typically, you guys have ITS Texas around the Veterans Day week. Just trying, because sadly, there's already long range planning going on and other things that deep. So I just want to make sure I'm helping to deconflict.
Uh-oh, we might have lost him.
Okay, I'll follow up with him. Hey, just really appreciate everybody participating in really great presentations and inclusive of, you know, this last round. I was trying to keep all the notes of what everybody's doing. But thank you for all that input, and I think a lot of things to follow up on in the coming months.
Well, and there's a recording. So the recording will be up on the STIC website for anyone to rewatch later. And also the chat notes, things like that will be available as well. Thank you, Darren. All right, thank you, everyone. You have a wonderful day and a happy Thanksgiving. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you, Shelley.
You too.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you.
Thank you.